Today we're about to consider Israel, Judah, America, and their destinies, and current events, things that are going on at present, and related matters. So one of the questions is, should the state of Israel really be called Judah? Of Judah. In other words, should the state of Israel be called Israel? So, strictly speaking, it should be called Judah. Because why should it be called Judah? Because most of the inhabitants, well, the core element, the basic core, the basic structure, the basic inner element of the state of Israel is based on, derived from descendants of the former inhabitants of the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah comprised the tribes of Judah, of Benjamin, and of Levi. 3 of the tribes, you had 13 tribes, so 13 tribes. 3 of the tribes were in the south. And they were, as I said, Judah, Benjamin, and later most of Levi. And also later representing minorities, the rest of the tribes. The 3 major tribes were Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And they were a minority amongst the 13 tribes. And they were referred to as the kingdom of Judah. Look it up in the Bible. They referred to the kingdom of Judah. Whereas the kingdom of Israel was in the north. The kingdom of Israel comprised 10 tribes. These 10 tribes had seceded. They had separated themselves from Judah. They had set up their own kingdom, which the Bible calls Israel. And this kingdom of Israel, of 10 tribes, was conquered by the Assyrians, and all its inhabitants were taken into exile, taken away, and resettled elsewhere. And from there, after different events and wars and so on, they migrated along different pathways, but eventually reconverged, recoalesced in the West amongst Western nations. And their descendants are there now amongst those Western peoples and amongst entities that derive from them, such as the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. So therefore, strictly speaking, the present state of Israel should be called Judah, because most of its people are descended from Judah. Most of its people are descended from Judah. And actually this was prophesied. Isaiah 48 says that in the end times it would be an entity. They would call itself Israel. It would actually be Judah. See Isaiah 48, 1. Here it is, a house of Jacob. Jacob is another name for Israel. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were the forefathers of the Israelite nation, of the Hebrew people, and Jacob was renamed Israel. So it says here, this house of Jacob is addressing himself to the house of Israel, to all the tribes of Israel. Here this house of Jacob, who are called by the name of Israel. Now come forth from the waters of Judah, come out of Judah, who swear by the name of the Lord and invoke the God of Israel, but not in truth or in righteousness. In other words, he says they're not, even though they acknowledge the God of Israel, these descendants of Judah, they call themselves Israel, but that is not what they are. They're actually Judah, and they are not sufficiently genuine in the worship of the Almighty. And it continues. So that is a problem that all of us, both the Jews and Gentiles amongst the 10 tribes, have a problem. We need to be more fervent and more genuine in our worship of God Almighty. But anyway, at all events, this proves the point. It also indicates that we are getting close to the end times, because only now have we an entity called Judah. Only now there's a polity, a state exists now that calls itself Israel, but is basically from Judah. And this is what we have now. The prophecy is talking to us. And so how did the state of Israel get this name? So shortly before the Declaration of Independence in 1948, on May the 14th, 1948, he declared, Ben-Gurion David Ben-Gurion, the leader of the Jewish community, of the Jewish Yishuv, the settlement of the Jews in the land of Israel at that time, he said, we hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel means the land of Israel, to be known as the State of Israel. And that was the declaration. And up until then, very few people knew what the state would be called. You had delegations, you had diplomats, Israeli diplomats or Jewish diplomats working for the Jewish agency, working for the Jewish state, and they didn't know what it was going to be called up until that moment, and it was not certain. And even Clark Clifford, the legal advisor to President Harry Truman, he also had a problem. He wanted to say something about it, didn't know what the name was to be called. It was assumed that the name would be Judea. Most people assumed the name would be Judea. Then the declaration came that it was to be called Israel. And there were reasons why it shouldn't be called Judea, because then when the state of Israel was declared, it didn't include most of Judah. Judah and Samaria, Judah, Shomron, they are on the West Bank. And even now there are people who hesitate to admit that that is part of the state of Israel. They didn't want to give a bad impression. They were very lucky, themselves were very lucky that they had been enabled, merited to declare the state of Israel, to declare an independent entity, and it was larger than they thought it would be. And they were better off than they thought they might have been. And they had important backers and they needed the goodwill of other countries, especially the USA. So they didn't want to give the impression that they were already casting their eyes further beyond to redeem Judah and Samaria and so on. So Judah at that time was considered a bit provocative. And Judah historically did include all the land of Israel at some stage or other, but mostly it related to the area around Jerusalem. And at that time, most of the area around Jerusalem did not belong to it. It seemed the area at least likely to become part of the state. And so it wasn't suited. Another suggestion was Zion. Zionism. Zion. But Zion also wasn't exactly geographically correct. So that was rejected. So in the end, they chose Israel. Ben-Gurion, they called a vote. They had a vote of 10 representatives, kind of a delegation, a committee, and of 10, 7 approved the name Israel. One that was suspected, one authority who was there, suspected that Ben-Gurion preferred the state of Israel as the name, in order to create a rupture, a break with the historical Jewish past, with the Judah as a religious entity connected to Judaism. He wanted something new. Whatever the case, who knows? But also divine providence so wanted it that at that time the name should be the State of Israel. So that is the name, and the State of Israel came into being. But strictly speaking, it is not so, because Israel in the Bible, the kingdom of Israel, refers to the 10 tribes. It refers to the 10 tribes. That is the name given to it throughout the Bible. And therefore the major Israelite nation in our time is America, it's the USA. So the USA in effect is Israel in biblical terms, in biblical terminology. Tax on the Jews, on the state of Israel, a tax on all the tribes of Israel. We are seeing that now before our eyes. In the past, you had the Jews, you had the Gentiles, you had the lost 10 tribes who were Gentiles, you had the Jews who were here from Judah, and there was a gap between them for religious reasons, for cultural reasons, for historical reasons. But now things are changing somewhat. We are faced with a new reality, and all of us on both sides of the division are coming to realise that there's much that unites us, and we have very much more in common than we realised, that we have a common destiny. People are coming in high places are coming to realise that. They don't know why. They cannot explain it, or they have other explanations for it. But it's a reality. And that is what is going on. So we'll get back to the present situation. Should note that 35% of Americans have some Jewish ancestry, even though it doesn't mean much, but it's worth noting. Over the years, a large number of Jews settled in America and intermixed with the population. So a good portion of the Americans already have some Jewish ancestry. Most of the rest, they come from all over the world. America's a melting pot. Most Americans listening to us now have a mixed ancestry. It doesn't really matter. The Bible says that is America, the USA, is the land of Israel, is the land apportioned to Israel, specifically to Manasseh, to Joseph and Ephraim, as we will see. And that is the reality. The Bible makes the reality. We don't tell the Bible what it should write. We don't tell the Bible what should be. We take it as what is written, and it tells us. And recently, we had Israel was attacked. Just get to a point, present situation. At the moment, Israeli forces are fighting Arab terrorist Nazi types in Gaza. One of my sons is with the forces there in Gaza. He goes in and out. He is around there. He's in the IDF at the moment. And two of my grandsons are also there. And they're also in the fray or in the forces that move in and out of the area. So apart from the fact that we are living here not that far away and we're personally involved, we have an even greater involvement than the normal. And there's a confrontation is going on. We are speaking now December the 18th, 2023, the invasion by the Nazis from Gaza happened in October the 17th, but a little bit more than a month ago. And they attacked from Gaza, and they came in with two waves of invaders, about 1,500 trained soldiers, professional soldiers, not primitive terrorists as you would expect, but professionals who've been working for this, training for it intensively for 3 years with state-of-the-art equipment. They came in on gliders, gliding in. You have to be trained to work those things and to fight at the same time. And what they did was what trained soldiers do, but they were followed. There's another wave after them of about 1,000, or also another 1,500 of simple citizens. People from Gaza who followed them and came in after them. This is a problem of getting mixed up with them, but both sections of both waves committed terrible atrocities. Attacked innocent people, innocent Jews, and they killed them. And they did things to women, they did things to children, and you can see it on the internet in lurid descriptions of what was done, but it really was done. Normal people don't do things like that, and according to the experts, the IDF experts, it must have been planned in advance to do that for psychological reasons. And they rape women, and also rape men. There are about more than 20 people who recovered, males in mental institutions in Israel who were raped by Hamas. And homosexuality causes psychological damage to people. Don't let any of the homosexuals tell you otherwise. And some Israelis are suffering because of that. And at all events, they attacked us. They attacked us when we least expected it. They attacked us on the last day of Simchat Torah, on the last day of Sukkot, which was also a holy Shabbat. And they killed a lot of people. They also came across a rave party, and it was going on, which just happened to be going on at that time, which hundreds of people were dancing all night long. Also, a portion of them were taking drugs. They didn't know what was happening when the noises, when the rockets started shooting. And some of them were still on the trip when they were being taken away as hostages. So this is Lordyman said that was what happened, why it happened, how it happened, who is to blame. That we can leave that for another time. And Israel reacted. Israel reacted and sent in its forces, and it is fighting. And there was apparently the people from Hamas were banking on that, were relying on that the Hezbollah would attack together with them or shortly after them from Lebanon and occupy Israeli forces in the north. And also Iran possibly was also supposed to come in, move in. And these people actually were drugged. They were drugged up with some type of amphetamine, a type of amphetamine that is produced in Syria. Syria, the major source of, a point of interest, a major source of the income, foreign income of Syria comes from selling drugs. Comes from selling its own type of illegal amphetamine, which gives people a high, it gives them energy. Also, it wrecks their cognition somewhat. And all of the attackers from Hamas were high on this drug when they came in. They were drugged up. And they attacked us. They attacked the innocent people. And now they are being fought, Israel is fighting against them. And apparently the people from Hamas, as we said, were hoping that Hezbollah would come in. And Hezbollah did not come in then, and probably will not come in later, though you never know. Also, they apparently were hoping that Iran would be involved, and perhaps Iran did give them such an assurance, because they had a state-of-the-art weaponry, very good weaponry, which they received somewhat late and didn't know how to work it properly. So that was, we were lucky because of that. There were less casualties caused to Israel because of this. The weaponry, a state-of-the-art, very good, very high quality, proficient weapons, but they didn't know how to work them properly, and so they weren't as deadly as they may have been. And Iran apparently was taken back, and so also the Hezbollah by the sudden change that we saw in President Biden. Before then we thought it was a left wing, a pinky, soft on terror, soft on Arabs, soft on everyone, as many of them are. And suddenly he came out, he showed himself something different. He sent in American ships, American nuclear ships to the east of the Mediterranean. And he warned Hezbollah, and he warned Iran not to interfere, and they didn't interfere. He also gave a harsh words to Turkey, and Turkey also restrained itself. This was the hand of God was working through President Biden, who after all represents the USA, which represents the Israelite, the state of Israel, the country of Israel, the peoples of Israel from the 10 tribes. And President Biden came in and he backed Israel up. And also, Britain also sent a ship to help us to the Mediterranean. And Britain was also very firm, very definite in its declaration of support for Israel. And so were most countries of the West, including France at the beginning and others. Most countries of the West, most countries that we identify as belong from the 10 tribes, nearly all of them, they backed Israel. And who was against Israel? Most countries are not. Most of the Muslim countries, China, Korea, the colored countries, the primitive countries, the other countries, they were all against Israel, and they still are. They didn't care what Hamas did. They themselves are probably liable to do worse things to their own people, so why should they care what the Hamas does to Jews